Good afternoon. Welcome to this lively discussion, Rebuilding the Plane Mid-Flight, Academic Libraries Responding to Crisis. My name is Audrey Powers, and I am co-moderator for this session along with Stephanie Jacobs.
So the goal of this discussion is to give you and all of us a sense of the challenges that we've faced, the changes of procedure and services at our libraries during and after the pandemic shutdown, and also after. We would like to present our presentation without taking questions, but afterwards we would love to hear about you and your experiences. So our presenters are pictured here in the order that they're going to present, and our discussion will cover technical services, electronic resources, public services, a vendor perspective, and copyright issues. The presenters will introduce themselves before they start. So as I said, we're going to open the floor at the end for you to enable discussion about how the paradigm shift has potentially restructured how academic libraries function now and in the future. As I said, we'll deliver the presentation without stopping for questions, but please put questions in the chat as they come to you. Somebody will be monitoring the chat for our Q&A at the end and our discussion. And when we begin the discussion portion, please do raise your hand to have your audio and video turned on. Video is optional. And as I said, you can also put questions in the chat. So let's get started. Gabby.
Okay. So thanks for that introduction. So my name is Gabby Wiersma, and I'm the Director of Collection Management at the University of Colorado Boulder Libraries. I oversee most of the technical services department except for cataloging. And that's actually been part of my pandemic journey, is a reorganization within our libraries, which for me has presented some challenges in terms of getting to know new employees and taking on some additional responsibilities. But it's also been a good opportunity for us to really think about our services and review and revise some of our workflows to see where we have synergies with other departments, and also learn some new tools like Microsoft Teams and Zoom to help us work and communicate asynchronously. When the libraries closed in March, it definitely felt like we were making a crash landing to get us through the end of the academic year and the end of our fiscal year. The closures happened right before our typical ordering deadlines and also before we had processed most of our remaining physical shipments and approval plan shipments. So one of the first things that we did was contact our vendors and ask them to hold shipments or request electronic invoices for our remaining orders. It was really surprising to us how many invoices we were still receiving in print form, and then we were passing from one person to the next in physical format. One of the first things we did was create a dedicated email address for all of our vendors so that they could distribute invoices and so that one person wasn't responsible for all of our email communications. It also allowed us to streamline that workflow so that we could pass invoices electronically from person to person and then file them electronically in a shared filing space. It's one of the most, it's a small change, but I think it's a process that I hope will continue after we're back to on site. It's a little bit more environmentally friendly, and I think it creates a better shared workflow for all of us. Another procedure that we had to modify was receiving materials to check them in based on information that we get from those electronic invoices instead of based on the items themselves. So in normal times we do a lot of checking for damage and to make sure that the item that we have in hand is the same, and we've had to alternate those processes. We've also had to redefine pretty much all of our rush processing. That's no longer a thing because we have really limited on-site staff, and we also need to ensure that materials are handled safely and properly for those who are working on-site. Our preservation staff have been following the realm studies and related research to help inform our safe handling procedures. We are quarantining materials when they're returned to us, and we're also careful about when we pass materials from one staff member to the next, we're dating the materials so that we know the last time something was handled. Another really major change we made was revising our approval plans to accept ebooks only. We needed to limit the number of print books and other items that we were ordering, and we wanted to maximize the number of ebooks and e-resources that we could make accessible to our users. As a general rule, we typically don't purchase materials in more than one format, but we've also made a lot of exceptions over the past months to purchase online versions of ebooks and streaming videos, even if we own a physical format. We also ended up setting up a lot of new ordering channels with new streaming video providers and ebook providers. We purchased a couple of large ebook packages and back files, really just in an effort to rapidly expand access to core content and university press content at the end of our academic year. Currently, we're prioritizing purchases for things like course reserves or materials that our faculty and students are asking for. And even though our on-site staffing is still very limited, we've resumed ordering for physical formats for certain disciplines, things like music, art, non-language materials, and that sort of thing, because those disciplines really rely more on the print formats and they don't have very good online equivalents. So at the beginning of the pandemic, and much to their credit, I think many publishers threw us life jackets by offering to extend trial access to ebooks, journals, and other scholarly content. We were very selective about the trials that we activated and promoted, in part because trials are really a lot of work for our staff to manage, and we had a lot going on. But I also wanted to be really mindful of managing expectations for us and our users and our vendors. We greatly appreciated when ebook aggregators were able to remove concurrent user limits, and we were also very grateful for publishers who offered to extend access to things like textbooks and other course materials. We also appreciated when publishers were able to reduce or maintain costs for subscriptions as we started to renew in this difficult budget year. CU Boulder is a member of the HATI Trust, and we joined the Open Libraries Initiative in the spring in order to gain access to the National Emergency Library and HATI's Emergency Temporary Access Service. It's been really great to have expanded digital access to the materials in our print collection, but we've definitely heard from our users that some of those ebooks that we've activated are not necessarily easy to use, and many of them have really missed having access to our print collection. Our stacks are still closed, and we're only offering to do electronic course reserves this fall and in the spring. We started offering contactless pickup services in the fall, but people really, again, have missed having access to the library and are clamoring for us to open our stacks and let them back into our spaces. I think it's easy to take our print collections for granted, like we often do, or begrudge the space that they take up in our buildings or the staff required to maintain them. But I think that one effect that closing the library has had is that we have really seen, and it's really underscored the value of our print and physical collections. This is something that I hope our users and our administrators will remember, how much people really needed and missed the library when it was closed, as we plan spaces and services and figure out where to go from here. Relying on e-resources has also highlighted some of the disparities in coverage and availability for ebooks and other electronic resources, especially for particular subjects. We've struggled to purchase or license all of the resources that our faculty and students need, either because they don't have an online version or the online version is cost prohibitive or not sold to libraries. While I don't necessarily want to encourage publishers to create new digital content that we can't afford right now, I do hope that we take this opportunity to think about our digitization strategies for content, especially for subjects like music, art, the performing arts, and our non-English language materials, because we just really don't have good online coverage for those areas. Another thing that widespread library closures really highlighted for us was the importance of interlibrary loan. So due to our limited on-site staffing capacity, we're still unable to loan or borrow print or other physical materials. We know that this is having a detrimental impact on us and our resource sharing partners who no longer have access to our collections as well. CU Boulder is a net lender in our state and in our regional consortia. We've also really felt it that we rely on our robust resource sharing networks to satisfy the needs of our academic community as well. One of the ways that we're seeing the impact of reduced ILL services is on our collections budget. We did a fair amount of purchase on demand through ILL before the pandemic, but demand has definitely increased over the past few months, and the service has really become one of our primary means of collection building. We're doing a lot more purchase on demand. We've seen a noticeable increase in the demand and expenditures from the service because we're just having to buy more than now that we can't borrow them. But I do think it is one of the many domino effects that we've experienced as we've made changes to one of our services and seeing how that impacts other services within the organization. We've definitely appreciated how much we've been able to get electronically through scans or resource sharing from other libraries during this time. Even though we're working remotely, we're still offering electronic delivery as well, and we want to be able to share more of our collections with other libraries if we can. So as we're investing more of our collections budget into ebooks and streaming videos, we're also trying to expand our ability to lend those materials to other libraries. And we're working on ways to secure access. That might be repetitive, sorry. And we're looking forward to the time when we can resume these services for our users and to other libraries as well. So this is when I would go to the next slide. Over there. So I think in closing, we had to make a lot of these changes really quickly, and our services, our operations are in flux. We're still trying to figure out the long-term impacts of shifting our collection development strategies and processing backlogs and what potential gaps this might leave in our collections. I had a couple other things. I realize I'm a little over time though. So I think the other thing I was going to leave people with is, like, when we're back on site, I think most of us will have a greater appreciation for little things like face-to-face meetings, our social gatherings, our ergonomic workstations, and even our offices will be a welcome change of scenery from our makeshift office homes. So these are just a few examples of changes that we made in our library, and I look forward to hearing the ideas from my fellow panelists as well as from the audience when we get to the Q&A. And with that, I will pass it on to my colleague, Esta.
Thanks, Gabby. So I'm Esta Tovstiati. I'm the Shared Collections Coordinator for the SUNY Library Services. I help coordinate consortial e-resource procurement, access, and management, and other collections initiatives for the SUNY Libraries Consortium. Our consortium is comprised of 60 schools. Half of those are community colleges, and the rest are a mixture of research universities, academic medical centers, liberal arts colleges, and colleges of technology. All of our libraries moved to a shared Alma and Primo environment in July 2019, and the team that I'm part of provides support services for those shared technologies, but we also provide training and support for other initiatives like consortial collection building and licensing. To sum it up, the pandemic fast-tracked a lot of changes that we were already working towards. And the first one I'm going to talk about is leveraging the Alma Network Zone for consortial e-resources. So Gabby mentioned that many vendors offered free trials and access during the peak of the pandemic. And rather than have all of our campuses activating these resources individually in Alma, we utilized the Network Zone to activate a few of the major larger resources. And we ran into a few hiccups getting the activations to work initially, but once those were resolved, the campuses were happy to not have to worry about managing access to those resources in Alma. And this is something we intend to do more as we expand our consortial licensing portfolio. Another one of our priorities was helping campuses adapt their collection to an online learning environment. So we did this in several ways. We offered a collection analysis service where we analyzed campuses' e-resource subscriptions to help them identify potential cancellations that would have a minimal programmatic impact at their campuses, or suggest utilizing on-demand article purchasing or ILL in some instances. And on average, for the campuses that we provided this service to, we identified potential cancellations of around 25% of their collections budget, which was a real help because, like many of your campuses, I'm sure, we've seen across the board budget cuts this year, and we'll probably continue to see them moving forward. Another service we offered was helping campuses identify online access to their print resources, and particularly their course reserves. So we used Alma's Network Zone analytics to pull circulation statistics and identified overlap in campuses' current subscriptions, and then worked with ProQuest and EBSCO to identify ebook availability on their respective platforms. And this helped our campuses quickly identify and procure some really high-use items for their students and faculty. And so finally, we were already moving towards more consortial collection building before the pandemic started. But as I mentioned earlier, the change to online learning really fast-tracked some of those efforts. We have a number of initiatives going on right now. We're currently coordinating a shared ebook DDA on the ProQuest eBook Central platform. So we're coordinating that for 2 separate cohorts of campuses, each with about 25 campuses participating. This is our first shared DDA since moving to Alma, so we're excited to see how that technology helps us move forward with this project. And we're also working to increase the number of consortial e-resources that we license. We only have a handful of consortial licenses right now. So what we're targeting currently are databases and journals that are in high demand at a majority of our campuses. And we're also looking to secure some open access article publication charge discounts and other open access support at the consortial level. So this is where I would switch to the next slide. Thanks. So looking ahead to the future, I'm seeing 2 major themes emerge from our experience with the pandemic. One of those is the digital user experience. So the reality for many of our users right now is hitting article paywalls or navigating through clunky database interfaces, finding out that they can only download 1 chapter of an ebook that they need for a course, things like this. So these were all problems before the pandemic, right? But I think that in some cases we were sort of able to ignore them at times. And I don't think that that's the case anymore. What we have tried to do during this pandemic is sort of, in my role and with my team, is leverage our shared technologies to kind of make our campus libraries more efficient so that they can focus on supporting students and faculty in this change to online learning. But we can't change the user experience, right? Because in so many ways it's a symptom of a scholarly publishing ecosystem that is focused on gatekeeping. It's a oh, what's the saying? I forgot. It's a feature, not a bug, right? It's a feature of the system, and we can't change that alone. But what we are doing is supporting things like open access and exploring transformative agreements and leveraging our scale and our size to hopefully change the way that libraries participate in this system. The financial impacts of COVID, especially on our campuses, will necessitate more shared collection building initiatives. Especially, I think, those that take advantage of libraries' legal rights to procure and share scholarly content. Gabby mentioned that a lot of the content that we need isn't available digitally for libraries to purchase. Well, I think that's where solutions like controlled digital lending at the consortial scale could come into play, or things like whole ebook ILL, shared print. These are the sort of changes that I see as necessary to ensure that we can, that our students and faculty can keep doing their work, which is of course our primary mission as libraries. But I think these kinds of initiatives also let libraries be change agents and active participants in building a better scholarly infrastructure, one that allows for a more democratic exchange of scholarly information, and one that doesn't exacerbate a sort of digital divide that I think many of us experienced before and during the pandemic. And I think it's something that we have the real power to change in our roles in academic libraries. So that's all that I have. I think I was a little over.
That's okay. And I was going to, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I was going to say I liked the way Gabby passed it over to you, and maybe we could do that for everyone who comes after us.
Absolutely, yeah.
Audrey. Audrey? Audrey?
She seems to be still on mute. I wonder if she can hear us.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I
Yes.
unmuted you.
Yeah. Oh, we both did it at the same time. Okay. So what I said was, thank you, Esther. I am Audrey Powers, a student success librarian at the University of South Florida. And so what I wanted to talk about was how were public services affected by changes in library services during the pandemic. So what we did was we increased the production of digital learning objects, including videos, learning management system modules, library guides, and website renovations. Fortunately, the library was reorganized just prior to the lockdown, so our unit became the Student Success and Instruction Unit, and we had created a total of 45 modules. But during the summer, we created a variety of instruction modules, of which 9 were for undergraduates and 4 were for upper level undergraduate and graduate students. So for example, I created Going Down the Rabbit Hole, Finding Relevant Information for Your Papers, which was viewed 170 times so far this semester. Help, I need this, how do I find it? And I was surprised that 554 times it was accessed by students so far. And then I also created database searching, creating an effective search strategy. And I built in a pre-test and a post-test. So the average score for the pre-test was 83%, and the average score for the post-test was 94%. We also created 15 new videos, of which many Stephanie created. And Stephanie and I developed a comprehensive spreadsheet that combined all of our learning activities that we had created up until that point. So that included modules, videos, websites, and LibGuides. And this was an item that we created for the other instruction librarians, which enabled them to push learning objects to faculty prior to the onset of the fall 2020 semester. We proactively participated in virtual services such as online reference services, messaging, and communication to the university community. We revised the library website for instruction with new online learning modules. Additionally, other departments participated in the development of the videos for public services such as COVID-19 Data and Information Hub, checked out materials, welcome back video, and seat reservation system. In terms of direct support for patrons, we charged out and sent new computers to students for the semester. We sent print books to patrons. We changed the return time for books and did not levy fines. We assisted information technology department with online and telephone questions, and we were updated regularly by the dean, who offers staff input for safety measures. And now I'd like to introduce Stephanie Jacobs.
Thank you, Audrey. My name is Stephanie Jacobs, and I am also part of the Library Student Success Unit at the University of South Florida. I am a liaison librarian for the English department, but I am also an instructional design librarian. That means that I'm sort of available to help my fellow librarians with the creation of online learning modules and things like video content. That's kind of my specialty. So as Audrey mentioned, we did see a huge increase in the creation of instructional materials of all different kinds. In particular, I did spearhead the creation of many new instructional videos on many different topics. Some of them were pandemic specific, such as the when I partnered with the library administration to create the directions for using our socially distanced seat reservation system. Others were more specifically on accessing library resources from home, particularly for those students and faculty who maybe had not done that before. And overall, the new video content that was created during this pandemic has seen increased viewership to the tune of about 4,000 views for the combined videos that were created, which is, I'll say, larger than usual. It's a larger than usual number of views. We keep statistics such as views and also information about how long each video was watched and things like that. So as Audrey mentioned, we as a group, the Library Student Success Department, was working on these Canvas-based information literacy workshops before the pandemic shutdown occurred, which was so incredibly timely because we don't intend them to replace face-to-face library instruction, but to rather be a way for the access to the library instruction to be expanded, you know, because not everybody has the class time to invite us in for a whole class time. So those were incredibly timely because they did offer students and faculty sort of a menu of library instruction that was applicable in this remote learning period. I also personally leveraged my unique skill set to help where needed. As I said before, I worked with library administration on a couple different videos. I also participated in an online teaching and learning assistance triage program that was headed up by our innovative education department. Essentially, we made ourselves available to faculty who were unsure about how to move their courses online. So we acted as sort of a Canvas and other types of, we triaged Canvas, but also Teams, also Kaltura, also Camtasia, basically anything that faculty found themselves unsure of how to use. We were there to help them sort of work through those issues. And as I said, I worked on the socially distanced procedures for reopening. Personally, I also found it very important to display an increased responsiveness to faculty anxiety. At the beginning of this shutdown or the pandemic, I reached out to my faculty and to let them know that I was there for them, albeit remotely, to emphasize that I was still working, albeit remotely, and to sort of remind them of the services that I and the rest of the library provide, and to, you know, make note of the ones that were and were not available during the shutdown, and also, of course, directing them to our official guides on the subject. I also I saw an increase of requests for me to help people locate open access resources, which I did, as well as directing them to our specific open access guides that were created by my colleagues in the library. And as before, I participated in the creation of many new learning materials. So overall, it was a unique experience for me, both as a liaison librarian and as an instructional designer. And I would say that pretty much wraps me up. So I'll turn it over to Rebecca Seeger. And thank you.